Hello, Michael.
Hello, how are you, Mark?
I'm doing really, really well, and it's a pleasure to see you.
A delight.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Well, we've been talking about doing this together now for months, but you and I have been friends now for, I want to say, it feels like 3, 4. I don't want to go to 5 years, but it's been 3 or 4 years now, hasn't it?
About three.
About
About
3.
three.
Yeah. And it's been a super pleasure to get to know you over the years, and one of the things that you've been just super gracious with me on is sort of helping me, sort of think about things and see things, and, you've always been great at reading my blogs and giving me some feedback, but, one of the things I wanna do before, sort of set this whole thing up is, I kind of assume that almost every entrepreneur has heard of Michael Gerber. you know? But, my gut is the vast majority of them have, but, not everyone has. And so, I wanna do a little setup, my sort of thinking of Michael Gerber and the story behind Michael Gerber. So I'll kinda do a setup of, my version of the origin story here. But then I would love for you to fill in, either the blanks or correct me where I'm wrong. But
Well, I have no problem with that.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, no, that's always been true. At least that's always been my experience. So, when I think of Michael E. Gerber, I think of kind of the father of what is now kind of referred to as the business operating systems industry, but the father of helping us really appreciate, especially us entrepreneurs, appreciate the concept that, a business is a system, and that a lot of entrepreneurs don't truly appreciate how important creating a business system is, and that you were really one of the first, if not the first people to start helping entrepreneurs understand that there's to create a business, you need a system, and that you need to sort of be the system creator and not just the doer of the work that is at is at the core of every single business. I mean, every single business is providing some service and or product that someone else sees of value. That's what the business is. That's how it makes money. But that you identified very early on that a lot of entrepreneurs focus on the work and not on the building of the system that turns into a company. And so uh, am I plus or minus right that you kind of are the father of this industry?
Well, I would say yes, because I've been here longer than anybody else, creating this thing that you've described. But I want to make one correction,
Yeah.
and it's the correction that sits at the heart of the problem. And the heart of the problem isn't the business system. The heart of the problem is they're not entrepreneurs. And so when you speak about teaching entrepreneurs, um, most people say that, Mark, but they miss the point of it. And the point of it is, as you know, the E-myth.
Yeah.
And the E-myth is the myth of the entrepreneur. And that the story resides at the heart of that problem. And so, what happened at the very beginning of this thing, I discovered nobody's an entrepreneur. Now, I don't mean nobody, but I'm rather dramatic in my emphasis. And I emphasize that because 90% of all startups go out of business before their 10th year. When I say that, Mark, think about that. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And when we think about a tragedy, one says that, so what is that tragedy? And so my work has been to awaken the entrepreneur within those I've been focusing my attention on, which I call the smallest of the small. So your work is with the emerging organization.
Yeah.
My work is with the smallest of the small, so that you have more to work with.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Well, and so that's the distinction.
Yeah, and it's interesting, and you and I over the years have had some fun with words. We could call that the name of we could certainly do a whole episode on fun with words, Michael and Mark.
Yeah.
Um, but and I know that your heart's always been with the smallest of the small, and to me, in some respects, it's with I think your mission, your passion has been around the entrepreneurs who haven't dreamed of not being the smallest of the small, who haven't dreamed of building something that goes much bigger than they themselves. Is that a fair
It
observation?
is. It is. And when you say playing with words,
Yeah.
um, the most important distinction that I would make, and I'm avid about this. I've devoted my life to this. And I've devoted my life to this because of the pain and suffering that I've encountered again and again, tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
And I see the tragedy because it's not just the guy, the woman who you're calling an entrepreneur.
Right.
It's their whole family. It's their kids. It's their friends. It's everyone.
The employees, even the customers.
You got it. And it's tragic
Yes.
because it doesn't have to be that way.
Yes.
And you write about that every damn week. It's astonishing to me the abundance of intelligence that you bring to the street every week, over and over and over, a new subject, all about the same subject.
Yes.
And I'm simply saying that we live in actually two different worlds. And I say that in no way to depreciate the world you live in, because I'm first honored to be here,
I'm honored to have you here.
but also moved by your intelligence. And I'm saying that your intelligence would be wasted on the people I work with because they've got to start all over again. And so I have been the past decade not creating a revenue producing enterprise, but creating what I call the new EMyth. And creating the new EMyth means to design, build, launch, and grow a new paradigm that most effectively touches the minds, hearts, and souls of the smallest of the small.
Right.
So everyone who says, I'm going to go out on my own, I want to be there when they say, I'm going to go out on my own, and I'm there saying, stop, stupid. Listen, because how you do what you're describing you're going to do is crucial if you hope to do it right.
Yeah.
And so that's the distinction.
Well, and let's go back into the origin story and a couple pieces of couple facts. Uh, EMyth was published. The EMyth, right? Your groundbreaking book was first published when?
1986.
1986. And it sold how many copies now?
Well, you have to think about the E-Myth and then its predecessor, the E-Myth Revisited.
Yep.
And then there's the E-Myth Manager.
Yep.
And then there's E-Myth Mastery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I've now published 34 books.
Yeah, which is incredible. And how many
Um,
and how many millions have you sold now collectively?
over 8 million.
Yeah.
And so it's been told to me by the people who do this thing, that my book is the 7th most successful business book ever published,
Yep.
which is astonishing to me because when they say it, they mean every business book. They don't mean a category of business books.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing when I say that because when you think that, then you got to ask the question, which is so what is it that has made those books so profoundly successful? And that lives at the heart of the question we're raising here.
Mm-hmm. And so number one, I want to get into what is it that makes that book. And I've done the research on this, by the way. I've researched because I would love to write a review of the top 250 business books of all time. So I've collected the sort of a list using several different mechanisms, including, of course, our fun AI these days. But there's no question that that the E-Myth is one of the top 10 business books of all time. From so many different perspectives, right? Because I looked at it through the lens of how many have been sold, right? And when I did my list, how many books have been sold? Um, how credible were they, right? How well they stood the test of time, right? And I had like 5 different categories that I asked, in this case, ChatGPT, how, let's look at let's create a list. Let's look at it through the lens of credibility. Let's look at it durability, obviously number of sales, reviews, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, the E-Myth was one of the top 10 for sure, if not, top 5. When you think about a book and you think about the journey that an author takes in order to create a great book, um, there's a there's always a really interesting story. There's an interesting story behind what, I like to refer to as the concepts, the tools, and the disciplines that ultimately make the book compelling. Um, and then there's a story behind acquiring the concepts, the tools, and the disciplines, right? So, book comes out in '86. When did you start on this journey towards creating the frameworks that are at the heart and soul of really the big idea that ultimately turns into a book?
8 years before the book,
So in the late 70s.
Yeah, so I started my very first company in 1977, and that company was called the Michael Thomas Corporation.
Yeah.
And I was Michael and he was Thomas. And that was formed based upon a realization that was at the profound center of all our work. The Michael Thomas Corporation is what, in fact, you called me the grandfather of.
Yeah.
It really was at the heart of the first really business development firm on the planet. Not a consulting firm,
Right.
a business development firm, built upon a model that nobody else had talked about. And that came about because of a remarkable experience I had. My brother-in-law, Ace Remus, had an advertising agency in Silicon Valley. I won't describe why or how Ace created an advertising agency in Silicon Valley, but I had a great deal to do with that. Ace came to me and he said, Michael, I got a problem. I create leads for our clients, and they have a monstrous problem converting them into sales.
Yeah.
Would you meet with one of my clients and figure out what the problem is? I said, Ace, I haven't a clue. I don't know anything about business. He said, Michael, you know more than you think you do. Just do me a favor and let's meet with Bob. I'm calling him Bob. I don't remember his name.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens. So I am always motivated by let's see what happens. And so we went to meet Bob. And Ace immediately says, guys, I'm going to take off for an hour, get to know each other, and let's see what happens. So Bob asked me naturally, so Michael, what do you know about my business? And I said, nothing, Bob. I didn't. And he said, well, if you don't know anything about me, what do you know about it, my product? And I said, less than that, Bob. So Michael, if you don't know anything about my business, you don't know anything about, how can you help me? I said, I haven't a clue, Bob. But Ace thinks I can. He's gone. So let's get to know each other and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
So I just started asking Bob questions. And this is where it happened, Mark. I thought I didn't know anything about Bob's business. What was astonishing to me is that Bob didn't either. And every question I asked him, he gave me an anecdotal answer. And finally, I asked him, do you have a selling system? And he said, what's that?
Right.
And that's where it happened.
Yeah.
I said, Bob, a selling system is what you provide your salespeople, every single one of them doing it every single way, the same time, for exactly the same reason, to produce exactly the same result. I said, holy shit, I've never thought of that. I hire people who are experienced salespeople who know the technology, and I figure they know how to do what they need to do. I said, Bob, that's your biggest problem. He said, well, can you create a selling system? I said, sure, Bob. My obvious confidence, my idiot confidence. And he said, well, why don't you do that for me? So Ace picks me up. He said, what happened? I said, Bob just hired me. Hired me to do what? To create a selling system for him. He said, how can you do that? You don't know anything about his business. You don't know anything I said, Ace, I told you that before we came here. And I said, I can do that. And then I did do that, Mark. But it became so obvious to me that, in fact, every single one of Ace's clients had the same problem. So then I did it with client number 2, number 3, different products, furniture, shoes. You get my point.
Yep.
But the process ended up being identically the same. But then there was a continuous problem. So what's the problem? And that's when it really took shape. Because on the way between one client and another client, I was doing it face to face. I went into McDonald's to get a nourishment. And then I thought, holy shit, excuse the expression. It never struck me. I saw it. I immediately saw it. I stepped out of McDonald's. I looked at McDonald's. I said, oh my God, that's it. And that's when the whole story took shape and form. And that's what led to now, today, what I call the dreaming room. And the true understanding of what an entrepreneur is, which nobody had talked about. Because everybody thinks and says an entrepreneur is somebody who starts a business.
Right.
And I'm saying, no, he's not. An entrepreneur is really 8 distinct personalities: a dreamer, a thinker, a storyteller, a leader, a designer, a builder, a launcher, a grower. I have a dream, I have a vision, I have a purpose, I have a mission, I have a job, I have a practice, I have a business, I have an enterprise. And once I realized that, Mark,
Yeah.
it changed everything.
And then once you realize that there are these 8 phases maybe of going from a solopreneur to actually a company builder and leader. Yes, no buzz?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Going from a company of 1 to a company of 1,000
Yes. And once you
is the way I describe it.
and then the Michael Thomas companies back then started to get to work with these with a bunch of different companies to help them understand sort of the entrepreneurial journey from a company of 1 to a
Yes,
company of 1,000, right?
yes. And the Michael Thomas Corporation created turnkey systems to apply in the process to do that.
Yes, yes. And so now all of a sudden you have these cycles of learning, cycles I'm highly confident of refining the system and really understanding the components of the system. At some point, you're like, I think I really understand this, number 1. Knowing you. Next thing is, I think I know how to tell this story so that others will understand it, and then I think I will write a book, take me through the journey of, okay, I've now developed a system. I now have a perspective of the humans that I'm working with, right? Specifically the entrepreneurs and specifically, I'm gonna use one of your phrases, right? Those who are having entrepreneurial seizures, right? You decide, I know enough now to write a book. Is this plus or minus accurate description of the journey so far?
Sort of. The Michael Thomas Corporation generated clients.
Yep.
We generated clients in a seminar, and was called Key Frustrations in a Small and Growing Business and What to Do About Them.
Uh-huh.
And I did that seminar, led that, I wrote the script for that seminar.
Yeah.
I delivered it 3 times a week.
For how many years?
And 8 years.
Yeah.
And our salespeople would go down the street knocking on doors and inviting small business owners to that seminar.
Yeah, and this is in Northern California in the Bay Area,
Yeah,
basically?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And at first we charged for it, and ultimately we gave it away. And it was a 3-hour seminar. Well, I'm doing that seminar, doing that seminar, doing that seminar, doing that seminar. And a guy comes up to me at the end of doing that seminar. And he said, Michael, he introduced himself. He said, my fiance is one of your employees. She told me I got to come and watch you do this. And he said, and so I did. I'm a stringer, he said. I didn't know the word for Ballinger Books. Ballinger's no longer with us. Harper acquired Ballinger.
Yeah.
He said, Ballinger Books, and they want to create a small business book. I believe you're the one to produce that book.
I've never heard this story.
Yeah. And he said, I'm going to go back to Ballinger and sell them that. And let's see what happens.
Yeah.
He comes back to me. He said, they want to do it. I'm going to edit it, he said. Let's get started. I said, what's the book going to be about? He said, your seminar, stupid. I said, holy shit. Okay, I wrote the book in 90 days. He comes to me and he said, now you need a title. And I got a title. I said, what is it? He said, the EMyth.
Wow.
I said, what's the EMyth? He said, you've been talking about it for 10 years. It's the entrepreneurial myth.
And that's the story.
I said, you got it. Yeah. And he said, I'm going to edit your book. I edited your book. Now it's going to be published and it's going to be called the EMyth. And that's how that book came about.
And the rest is history, as they say.
Now, understand, we're the Michael Thomas Corporation.
Yeah.
And so we were then receiving leads from the EMyth. It ultimately became obvious to us to create the company from Michael Thomas to the EMyth.
Right.
But before we did that, my partner and I had a falling out. So we changed Michael Thomas to Gerber Business Development. And then we changed Gerber Business Development to the EMyth Academy. Then we changed the EMyth Academy to EMyth Worldwide. And then EMyth Worldwide simply became EMyth. But during the transition at the end, I left EMyth. I'm a lousy manager, Mark.
Yeah. We've had this
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, just terrible. I'm really a terrible entrepreneur as well.
Which the irony of it all, right?
Yes, I mean, it's, you come to the realizations about yourself. What's missing in this picture?
Right.
It is a critical question everybody's got to ask.
Yeah.
And it comes to the realization of what am I really here to do? It came to me in a very strange way when somebody said, you really should read Torah.
Read which one?
You really should. Torah, Torah. You really should read the Bible.
Yeah.
And you should really read the Bible, because in Genesis, it says that we are born in the image of God. And when somebody said that to me, it struck me that we're then born to create.
Yes.
That was my spin on it.
Mhm.
And in response to what? To create a world fit for God. And the evolution of that idea, Mark, has lived at the heart of what I've been doing for the past decade.
Yeah.
And that is to recreate everything that EMyth had created in a way that became more significant to that guy, that woman who said, I'm going to start a business of my own. And the 8 steps, the 8 personalities of an entrepreneur,
Right.
in my mind, had to be introduced in a way that we'd never introduced them before. And therein resides the evolution of an enterprise, from a company of one to a company of 1,000, the dreamer, the thinker, the story, et cetera, and so forth.
Right. When you look at this now, if you think about it, was 78 to 88, 88 obviously to 98, 98 to 108, 108 to 118, right? We're almost on 50 years. As you said, we're all creators and we want to do something. I believe every one of us wants to matter, and to matter means we need to be doing something useful. And obviously, the useful thing that we do is we create things that actually help other people be creators, because ultimately, if each of us wants to matter, and to matter, we create things, and we create things that help other people, right? There's this whole thing here where we're all in this process of mattering, and that it's impossible to matter without mattering for others. And so we're all actually in the game of service, even though, there's a lot of sort of stories that are out there, that lead you down paths that don't actually reconcile well with that, like the individualist and all this kind of stuff. But we can't all be like create everything, because that's impossible. If you try to be everything, you're nothing, kind of a thing. Um, as you went through this journey over the last 50 years, where and I think I know the answer, but I'm not, of course, gonna lead the witness here. Have you been pretty darn consistent in terms of who you're trying to serve? And do you understand it more deeply today than you've ever understood it? What is your thought on on y on how you matter and how you serve these days?
One would say I've been too consistent, um, because the person I'm speaking to, in my mind, has never changed.
Yep.
And the person I'm speaking to has never changed, meaning I haven't realized my dream. Because when Tom and I sat down to ask the question, so what's the Michael Thomas Corporation all about?
Yeah.
Um, we spent some serious time talking about that. And ultimately, it came down to me saying, I have a dream, Tom. My dream is to transform the state of small business worldwide. And how we do that is what MTC is all about. MTC, the Michael Thomas Corporation.
Yep.
I always, when we talk, I always respond to what you say by correcting something.
Yeah.
Yeah. and and I apologize for doing that.
No?
But the greatest problem in the way of doing this is that The assumption that you make when you say what you've said, that we all want to do something meaningful,
Mhm.
that you all want to have a positive impact upon people, etc. Problem I've realized is that's not true.
'Kay.
And that's the greatest difficulty. That the vast majority of people who start their own companies aren't thinking about anyone but themselves. They don't have a higher motivation. This has been driven through to me, my consciousness, deeply over the 50 years that I've been engaged in this process.
Yep.
It's the most frustrating, um, negative experience that I've lived with all these years. One would think what you said would be true because we wish it would be true. I think of Mark, I think of higher mind. Unfortunately, the vast majority of us don't live in higher mind. We live in lower mind. I'm saying the folks who start small companies, the vast majority, Mark, people who start their own business start it for a very selfish reason. It's to get rid of the boss. I got to get rid of the boss. I can do this on my own and take home all the money.
Yeah.
That's the story,
Yeah.
Mark, in a nutshell.
Let's 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 go there for a second. So, and then take it to that next step, right? So one of the
Good.
things I know you've been very kind to, read my blogs and we've had great conversations over the years. And as you may or may not recall, I deeply believe we end up needing to have 7 high trust relationships with 7 different types of relationships, right? And so one of them obviously as an example with family, and then another one is with groups, right? And then another one is with the universe, and there's 7. But remember, I've said that one of the 7, and it's an extraordinarily important one, is the relationship with yourself, right?
Yes.
And so my perspective is it's that classic, you gotta put when there's problems with with the air in a plane, right? The mask comes down, and you gotta put that on yourself first before you can help others, right? And so, I don't think you and I are in a disagreement on what you've just said, right? I think I look at it through the lens of, yes, you and I think one of the things that one of our shared passions, right, is helping people understand that ultimately they are going to feel better about the journey they're taking, right? Better about how they matter if not only do they develop a very strong relationship with themselves, but they can start to expand how they matter and impact. And lots of people don't get stuck, right, on their own relationship, right, developmentally, and then they feel as if they're, um, I don't use the term inadequate, but there's something more, and they just never sort of, like, they never sort of get to that place where they feel good about, you know, doing more, and so there's this tension that both of us, I think, are trying to help, which is helping people understand that they can have a bigger impact, they can do more. They don't have to, it's always up to them, but that the journey of life becomes more and more fulfilling as you're capable of coming out of being all about just yourself and creating something that goes beyond your own needs. But it's as you said, I think there are a lot of people, including those who their solve was, I just don't want a boss. There are a lot of people who end up focusing mostly on themselves. And then this gets to the tragedy that you talked about at the very beginning of our discussion today, right? The tragedy of you could have done so much more for your family. You could have done so much more for your employees. You could have done so much more for your customers. You have so much more to give. And you and I are here to help people see that they have so much more to give, and it's actually not as complicated as most people think in terms of being able to be a bigger giver. But you gotta understand who you are and then take advantage of things like the E-Myth Revisited, understanding that to build a business, right, it's more than just you being the technician, you being the builder, you being the doer. How would you respond to that? How do you respond to that?
You you know you know how I'm gonna respond to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the same conversation over and over and over again.
Yeah.
My response is, you're in graduate school and I'm in kindergarten, and you know the metaphor. I'm just really saying, when I say kindergarten, I'm saying I've got to speak in a more emphatically, um, distinctly clear way that they can appreciate it where they are.
Yeah. But you still you and I are whether we
We're in agreement.
we're
We're
in
in
agreement
agreement.
on that's what we're trying to do is that's how we're trying to make an impact is to help these people see beyond themselves and the opportunity behind themselves.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And it's simply a question of how we do that.
Yeah.
And really, it's simply a question of how we do that. So I walk them now through that process. I have a dream. What is it? I can spend a week with clients before they ever get it. Hear me. That's how fundamental this is.
Yeah.
Because if I don't have a dream, meaning, what am I here to do? Which raises the question, for whom am I here to do it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What am I here to do? So I walk them through that process to the point where they can finally say, I have a dream. Now, my dream is still 1977, and I'm here today speaking to you the same dream,
Yeah.
to transform the state of small business worldwide. Because I know that if I'm capable of transforming the state of small business worldwide, I'm capable of transforming the state of entrepreneurship worldwide. And if I'm capable of doing that, I'm capable of transforming the state of economic development worldwide.
Yeah.
Now, if you and I could do that, Mark, the world we can transform. It, how big that is. But until I get step one to transform the state of small business worldwide, I'll never get on with number two, number three, number four, etc.
All right, Michael. So we're gonna have a classic Mark and Michael conversation.
Yes,
I'm gonna push back on you right now and say
good.
that you're actually not no me knowing you and you right? You actually are not about transforming the state of small businesses worldwide.
Okay,
You are about helping entrepreneurs understand that that they have the ability to actually create a small business that could become a real business, but I think you're more about the individual than you are about the business itself. And the individual I'm talking about is the entrepreneur. Am I wrong?
Yes. um, and it's not language,
Yeah.
it's fact. When you say the entrepreneur,
Yes.
I'm saying small business owner. And I'm making a major distinction between them.
Yeah.
I'm there to convert the small business owner into an
I
entrepreneur.
love it. But the point I was trying to make is you're about the
You got
individual.
uh, obviously,
Yeah.
because I can't transform the state of small business worldwide unless I transform the state of the individual worldwide.
Of the small business owner.
Yes, the small business owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's all personal.
yes. And so if you look at almost 50 years now and the thing that you've been passionate about, and you look at the nature of society and technology and economies and everything that's gone on over the last 50 years, is the problem pretty much the exact same problem?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because all the rest of it is tools.
Yeah.
Tools. Tools.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. But you put a tool into the hands of a midget, it doesn't make him a 7-foot guy.
Right.
And we're putting tools into the hands of a midget.
Mhm.
And he tries to, but he's still dysfunctional.
Yeah.
All those tools gone to waste. Think about that. All those profound capabilities
Yeah.
because of the tools
Right.
that have been created to make it work.
Yeah.
It would be like giving me a new carburetor to install in my car.
Yeah. Do you feel like
Pardon the language. Yeah,
do you feel like and this is one of these, like, not even, not even almost satisfactory conversations right now, right? But if you look at the small business owner today
yeah,
versus 50 years ago,
yeah.
that individual has access to, as you just said, right? To some extent, an amazingly larger collection of not just tools, but they all are really tools, right? But they have an amazing access to just an extraordinarily more advanced set of tools, right? But
And thinkers
uh, be- beg your pardon?
and thinkers.
Yes,
Thinkers like you.
teachers
Teachers, thinkers.
and
Yeah.
facilitators and coaches and a whole host
Yes,
of
yes,
humans that could help them with
yes.
certain things that they're struggling with.
Absolutely. I think the number in America is today there are 83,000 business coaches.
Yeah,
Think about it. Check check the number.
it doesn't shock me.
But
Yeah,
yeah, but and I look at them and they're all in a way a spin-off of what we started to do in 1977.
yeah,
And I keep on seeing them. And pardon me, it's again emphatic, overly emphatic.
yeah,
Seeing them doing the right thing in the wrong way.
Both the coaches
Um,
or the
yeah,
business owners?
the coaches,
Yeah.
the coaches, because in effect, the vast majority of coaches are selling something.
Mhm.
And on the one hand, they're selling themselves. Coach Murray, I know how to do this.
Right.
Coach Mary, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
Coach Jim, Coach Jolly, Coach, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. Each creating their own way to do this, to differentiate themselves in the market to get clients.
Mhm.
And in the process, something is seriously missing.
And would you say that, Michael, because when you look at, once again, back and you just look at the small business owner, and you look at the number of small business owners, and you look at the state of the mindset of the small business owner, do you not see much change in the 50 years? Is it still the same percentage? Is it still the same number? Is it still the same game?
Yes,
Is it just like, even though all all of this has been made available to these humans, the vast majority of them are still suffering the tragedy that you talked about in the very beginning?
do me a favor,
Yeah,
do yourself a favor, do us all a favor.
yeah,
Go and do the research, and you'll discover, you will, in the way that you discover everything has led you to write and teach and speak about what you speak about,
yeah.
et cetera, and so forth. Go into that marketplace and you'll see what I'm saying. My belief is you'll understand or come to the same point of agreement with me about that.
Yeah. It it
I believe that.
Yeah, so it's another way of putting it is, when it's interesting, right? So and I'm gonna do the stupid Mark thing I do, right? So let's just say, for the sake of this conversation, that
Mark, let me say something. Just say, you never do the stupid Mark thing, ever.
thank you, Michael. But if we
Because there is no stupid Mark.
thank you. But if we go back 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Just to do some simple math, because I'm the math guy, right? Today, plus or minus, in the United States, we have, plus or minus, every single year, let's just say 600 to 800,000 people who start a business,
Think about that.
right?
I mean, think about that.
I
But don't be,
Trust
yeah,
me,
don't be light when you say that.
I'm not.
600 to 800,000
Yes,
every
every
year.
year,
Think about that. Therein resides the tragedy.
right? Well, so I was gonna go there next, right? So
Yeah.
now, okay, so we have this number, and maybe if we go
Mhm.
back, 50 years, maybe the number was a little bit smaller, but my gut is it was probably it wasn't one third or one quarter or 10% of that. It was
No.
still a big number, right?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
if we look at this 50 years ago versus today, this is where I think you and I have a lot of shared, um, emotion, for lack of a better term, right? It probably is still 90% of those businesses fail within 10 years.
Yeah.
So, with all this progress, quote unquote, that we've had, and with all these coaches, and with all these operating systems, with everything, 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 we have not, we've not gotten much better. Is that true or false?
True.
Yeah.
A perfect another way of looking at it is, I'm sure you're familiar with the Musk
Who's that?
thing. Yeah, and Doge.
Yeah.
You look at that with everything we have learned over the years.
Yeah.
You look at that tragedy and you've got to say, what is wrong with us? Mark, that's the question. What is wrong with us? Fundamentally wrong with us. That's what lives at the heart of what I'm speaking about.
Yeah.
What in the world is wrong with us? How could our government be so fundamentally flawed? The billions of dollars invested in being so flawed. What is wrong with us, Mark?
I have thoughts on this, and I appreciate you writing a blurb for me on Work 9.0. But, it's a we we really do know how all this happened, and we really do understand where we are in this developmental journey that we, as an example, as a society, are going through. And and the reality is that, back to what I said earlier, people want to matter, and if you're in a bureaucracy, the way you matter is by getting more and more people to report to you, and every one of those people, humans in those bureaucracies, and how many of them are there in the government today, right? It's all, the road to whatever is paved with good intentions, right? I think that's Hayek, right? But but yet we know how we got here, and then unfortunately, right? I have another series coming out in my Substack on this, about complexity and collapse, right? And what happens is, if you look at history of societies, whether it's the Mayans or, the Chinese in 1,000 years ago, or the Roman Empire, right? All these bureaucracies, they just become more and more and more complex, until at some point the entropy that's exist in the universe, right, just becomes so heavy that they collapse, right? And because and people are like, "I can't deal with it anymore. I don't know how to deal with it. It's too complex. How do you know?" And the problem is, you have all these vested interests, all these people who wanna matter, and all these different unique perspectives, once again, all with good intentions for the vast majority, right? And it gets to the point where it's just like, you know, no one's gonna fight for it anymore, right? And it collapses, and so, yeah, that's a whole 'nother conversation. But, I go back to the small business owner, and the state of the small business owner. And as you know, and you and I have talked about for years now, and you've given me some really, very direct advice on all this, which is that we can have all of the most amazing technology in the world. We can have all the best playbooks, best assessments, the best sort of concepts and tools and disciplines, that you could ever need. I deeply believe we have these things, but if you cannot if you cannot hit the heart and mind of the business owner and help them understand that they could be more, then you're going to continue to just have, 90% failure rate. And I think, as you've been counseling me for years now, I need to be a better storyteller. I need to be more effective at helping people understand what we're talking about right now. I own that as a
I want to again correct you.
Of course.
It is not, you're not, it's not that you have to become a better storyteller. You're an exquisite storyteller. You're just telling a story for a different person than I am.
Yes.
They've already evolved.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's
Mine haven't.
yeah, and I think that's a really good point here, right? Because when I was thinking about today, this opportunity, which, thank you, right? When I was thinking about our conversation today, I was thinking about you and your passion and your focus, you know, on the business owner. And my focus, which has been on the business owner who's taken at least a couple steps forward,
Yeah,
right? They're trying to build a company. So they've 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 gone beyond themselves, at least they want to, right? They wanna build a company now, right? Or they wanna build a business. They've gone beyond the original, I think you're gonna correct me on this, right? They've gone beyond the original one of the original personas that you were speaking to, which is the individual who didn't want a boss, who's just has their own business, right? Who's doing everything, wearing every single hat, the sales hat, the marketing hat, the production hat, right? The design hat, etc., right? And you wanted to help them see that they could be more and do more. And then I'm hitting them predominantly after they've left stage 1, they've left stage 2, they're now into stage 3 where they have, 10, 20, 50, 100 employees, but the system that they've created is just chaotic, right? It's
yeah,
it's 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 they haven't been I don't wanna use the term thoughtful, right? But they've been so focused on that next level of work, and they didn't and hiring people, and then one day you wake up and you're like, "Well, I've got uh, I've got a marketing organization, I've got a sales organization, I've got a production organization, operation, customer success, I've got finance," right? But all I do all day long is help these people get along. They don't even like working with one another. They're all doing different things. They all have different
right,
agendas, right? And they all think
right.
they're good human beings, but even culturally, like some of them are like, I just want to make sure my team is really happy. And others are like, I'm all about performance. I need to be able to run this thing at 100 miles per hour. And so you got some people with one little type of a team and another type of a team and another type of a team and another type of
Yeah,
a team and the founder, because now it's moved from a business owner to a founder, the founder's just tearing out his or her hair because there's chaos everywhere, and they feel like they're doing, you know, some of every single person's job, and it's just like, this is, I don't wanna say it's literally killing me, but in a lot of situations, it's really adversely impacting their life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, right?
it's
So
literally killing them.
I'm sorry?
It is literally killing them.
It is literally, right? And so it's interesting that, I think my passion has been around those humans that are a few steps down the road in terms of the entrepreneurial journey. And yours has been, as you said, to help, you know, the smallest of the small business owners understand that there's a tragedy if they don't multiply themselves to some extent.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about startup.
Yeah,
So everything I referred to, I say, let's start up again.
yeah,
Because wherever you are in that beginning journey, that's old code. We have to focus on new code.
yeah. Scalable code.
And yes, how do you create a company from the beginning, from step one?
Yeah,
You ask the essential questions you need to ask before you ever get to the point of doing it, doing it, doing it, doing it.
yeah,
And that's why the dream, the vision, the purpose, and the mission create a platform for the next 4 steps.
Yeah.
The job, the practice, the business, the enterprise.
Yeah.
And so I walk them through the dreaming room as an introduction, creating a great growing company.
Yeah.
And the questions that are raised, the answers that are given are truly breakthroughs. And if you were to read the quotes from holy shit, it's the holy shit experience.
Yeah.
It's like, I never thought of that before. And when you have somebody saying that at the very beginning, it's just amazing. And it's that I've discovered in these most recent years. That's why I call it the new EMyth. EMyth is about tools.
Mm-hmm. And systems.
Coach. Yeah, well, that's what I mean by, how to do this, how to do this, how to do this, how to do this, and orchestrating those tools and teaching our client how to use them. I come back before tools because I came to the realization tools are not enough. And when you said systems, the tools produce systems. I come back pre that. And that's where something magical occurs. And were you to sit in a dreaming room, you'd see it. You'd instantly get it.
Yeah.
I know you would. I trust your earnestness for the creation of something stunning. And I know you have the experience of that with those more advanced clients, students. And I know you'd immediately get what I'm talking about experientially. And that experience will blow your mind. I trust that. And when your mind is blown, Mark, you'll see more in it than I do. Because when you see, so what's changed for you in 50 years? And I say nothing. You say, Gerber, you got to be the stupidest guy in the planet. Because if nothing's changed in 50, obviously something's changed.
Yeah.
The emergence of this conversation we're having. But were you to experience the dreaming room, sitting in it, experiencing the dreaming room, you'd experience it in a way that you haven't experienced it before.
Yeah.
And the minute you get that, you get why I say this is the biggest thing on the planet. That were someone take what now I've created and launch it. Now I've launched it. We've done countless dreaming rooms.
Yeah. How long have you been doing the dreaming rooms for now, Michael?
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably longer than that. My wife reminds me that we've been married for 20 years. I said, holy shit, that long? She says, yeah, Gerber. 20 years.
Well, right now, I have to say, Lucidelia, hello. Big warm hug. Speaking of your,
yes.
Yeah.
So she would probably tell me, no, Michael, it's longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some way, we started it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But I forget when my first dreaming was. I had somebody just told me because he was there in that first dreaming room.
Right.
And I forget the
Yeah.
date.
Well, I think we're gonna come to, and we'll probably do more of these, but come to a close here. But I do wanna close on the dreaming room, right? Because I know that's been, um, back to this whole conversation around your focus on that, on helping the business owner, the small business owner, understand that, uh, that this step that you and I would love for them to take, this attack we both have on the tragedy of the small business owner who doesn't evolve and take on a bigger responsibility. Um, it's impossible to address the issue without igniting the dream,
Yes.
right? And so that's been the thing that you've been doing a lot of, focusing a lot of in your young age, is the dreaming room. And what I'd love to do is link to uh, something and below, as they say, right? So that people can learn more about the dreaming room, because you and I are both you know on a mission here, which is to, as you said at the very beginning, right, to improve the small business, the, the world of the small business, because the small business is at the heart and soul, I believe, of a healthy society, as you and I have agreed on many, many, many times over the years. And so I'm a huge fan of your passion for igniting people's dreams, and I just always love our time together. I always love the back and forth and you correcting my word choice. And as we finish up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with the folks who, we believe, I think you and I believe, I have the good fortune of being able to watch a conversation like this.
Yes. Well, we're at a stage here to replicate me. And so we call them leaders of the dreaming room. So anyone who's truly empathic about the opportunity to transform the state of small business
Yeah,
owners worldwide, the dreaming room is the way we do it.
yeah,
And I'm looking for people who say, I want to do that,
yeah.
Michael. I want to transform the state of small business owners worldwide. I want to learn how to do that. Join me. And they can reach me at michael@michaelegerber.com. Straight to me. I'll speak to them.
Is there
Michael@michaelegerber.com.
Are there any characteristics besides obviously being drawn to this mission? Are there any characteristics of the types of humans you're looking for in terms of helping you extend the dreaming room reach?
Anybody who has been moved by our conversation will, in fact, most likely be a likely candidate to lead a dreaming room because we'll teach them everything they need to know. And so if they've been inspired by your share, my share, and the emergence of that one share, um, they are very, very likely great candidates to lead dreaming rooms. All they need to do is contact me and I'll find out whether that's true or not.
All right. With that, Michael, as always, love our time together. Super appreciate you. And as I said, give a big warm hug to Luz Delia for me. And who
I
knows? Maybe we'll have some more time doing something else on this little channel.
would love to do it. I'd love to walk you through a dreaming room here
Oh, that'd be cool.
and take take you through those 8 steps.
All right.
And then you can respond to me as we do it.
We'll work on that one. All right, Michael.
You got it. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
A pleasure.
Always.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.